a long time ago. It was probably about 2006. I was hanging out with my old roommate. Her name's Grace. I was friends with her little sister Hope too. But Grace was crazy. She had this like mouth on her, like, and she drank like a fucking fish. And every time I hung out with her, things just got bonkers. So I was hanging out with her, and we were drinking at a bar, and she's like, "Let's go to a strip club on the Sunset Strip." And I'm like, "Grace, strip club, really? On the Strip too? Like, really?" She's like, "We're going." And so we went. And I was like down and out. I didn't have a lot of cash. And so I had enough money for a lap dance. And Grace was like, "Do it, do it, do it." And I was like, "This is like bread money for tomorrow." Like, she's like, "Nah, do it. I'll pay you back," which I knew she wouldn't. And so I get the lap dance. And it's like, I hate strip clubs. But, she worked hard. So I was like, "I'm sorry, I can't tip you. I just have to get to $60 for the dance, but I can give you like a couple of Vicodin." And she's like, "I don't do drugs." And then the next thing I know, she leaves. She goes to her boyfriend, who's the bouncer, and he's rousting me. He's like, "How dare you? Blah, 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 blah." I don't really remember what he was saying. So he takes me outside, and I was like in the bag. I was drunk. I was on pills. And so we get into a fight because I'm like, "Fuck you. Don't kick me out of your fucking place. I hate strip clubs, but fuck you." So we're kind of wrestling, kind of tussling. And I go at him like this. I grab him, like tackle him. And he takes a very small knife, like a penknife, and stabs me right here. It's hard to see, but I got a little scar that sometimes gets irritated. Yep. There it is. And I didn't notice it because it's tiny and it hit my fucking shoulder blade. So long story short, like I kicked the shit out of him, and then I'm walking away, and Grace is like, "You're fucking bleeding a lot. Like your back is covered in blood." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" She's like, "We got to get you stitches." And I'm like, "No, I'll take some ibuprofen and let's get some super glue." Because I didn't have health insurance. And that's why that scar gets irritated every couple of years.
Oh, shit.
But yeah, that's the story of how I was a scumbag.
Yeah, no, I relate to the feeling of like, I didn't want to be here in the first place, but now that I'm being forced to leave, fuck you. Exactly. This is where I am. You can't change that.
I came in, I offered her good drugs.
Yeah, these are drugs that I was going to take. And I offered to give them away.
Yeah, and she doesn't
kicking me out over that?
Fine. Like, you don't got to kick me out. Yeah, the guy was a loser. But anyways, so this is my brain is hanging upside down. I hope you guys enjoyed that tale of debauchery and just all around scumminess. My name is Maxwell Murder. Josh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Josh, otherwise known as Jay Gazes.
And we got Taylor on the line.
Hey, this is the artist formerly known as Taylor.
Thank you, Yee. Wow, I can't get on that subject.
Yeah, no.
Anyways, after I think about a long ass hiatus, 8 months or so, we're back. We're finally doing the Beastie Boys. We are better than ever, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything because the last time we did do Beastie Boys Part 1, but the sound didn't record. So that's the bar we have to sort of overcome here. So
yeah, we should be able to do a little bit better this time, I think.
Yeah, guys, shoot for mediocre.
Oh, don't worry. I've always had delusions of adequacy.
Me too. But yeah, so I'll just introduce the subject. Everyone knows the Beastie Boys. They are fucking awesome. They're quintessential sort of artists that spanned like a lot of different genres. People think of them as a rap group, but like they started out with hardcore. They did a lot of funky shit. They did instrumental albums, like, and they did it through their whole career except for the beginning. So I loved them as a kid. I mean, 3 Jewish punk rock kids from New York rapping like they're like Curtis Blow. It's pretty awesome. I don't know, Josh, I know you loved them too.
Yep. Yeah, I grew up listening to the Beastie Boys. I was actually, probably about 13 or so before I really like got into them. So like it was towards like the second, half of their music. But I mean, I had always heard their songs. I remember seeing them on MTV,
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah, of course.
yeah, and yeah. I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly there.
Yeah, Taylor, I mean, you're a little younger than us, so what's your experience with them? Like, what was your introduction to the Beastie Boys? Your father, I
Uh,
assume.
yeah, both my dad and my mom
Awesome.
showed me the Beastie Boys when I was really little. But to be honest with you, I misread the text that was sent out about this podcast. I thought this one was going to be about Beast Boy from Teen Titans, so I just finished watching all of Teen Titans and a little underprepared here. But luckily, I've listened to a lot of Beastie Boys my whole life.
Well, that's good.
I mean, we could do a King Titan episode. It was in my head anyways, so
Yeah.
After Deftones and folk punk, we'll do whatever. King Diamond, maybe. I don't know. Ronnie James Dio. Fuck, man, you got me there. Well, they were the first concert I ever went to, I think I was about 10 years old. It was the Rolling Stones tour with my dad. But the second concert I ever went to was the Tibetan Freedom concert at the Polo Fields in San Francisco. So I saw Rage, I saw Beastie Boys, and other bands.
Yeah, I remember Tibetan Freedom.
It was fucking wicked. I was like 11 years old walking around this place, and I remember, this is one thing I remember really vividly. My dad kind of like, he was having fun, but he was like, okay, you can go do your own thing. I'm going to go over here. I'm wearing my MUFON UFO hat. I'm an inspector for UFOs. He's a nerd. And I'm going to go get a beer or something. So I walked into the pit during Rage, and like, I'm a kid, so I didn't like go in. But there's this guy who lights up a joint next to me, and he's like, anyone want any weed? And he starts to hand it to me. He's like, oh no, okay, here you go. Hands it the other way. And I was really disappointed. But it was a wicked show. And the Beastie Boys fucking rocked it.
They had Tibetan Freedom in DC also.
Yeah, it was a US world tour thing. They like all, it was huge.
I didn't go. Yeah, I was only like, yeah, so did I actually. I think we were at the same show, weren't we?
In DC?
Yeah.
Yeah, I took my dad to go see him.
Although, did you go night 1 or night 2?
Recently?
Yeah. It was probably like end of the summer time frame. It was still kind of warm out.
Okay. I think Josh and I were talking about this. Wasn't it kind of like,
it was right before we went and saw the Chili Peppers, I think.
Yeah, it was. And you were saying something happened with Zach or something.
He had just broken his foot not too long before that, so he was sitting on stage the whole time.
Lame. You don't go for Zach De La Rocha anyways. You go for fucking Tom Morello.
Bassist, yeah.
The bassist, yes. You go for the bassist. Anyways, back to the Beastie Boys. So yeah, that was I was introduced to them a little bit before that, but my friend Cassidy and I, and this is like, I met him in 8th grade, and we were we're still friends. I told him to tune into this. I hope he's tuning into this. But he was like, him and his brother were really, really big fans. And his brother was like kind of a genius, like an artistic genius. Like now he went to UCLA for fine art. He paints. But like he would do things like kind of like Adam Yout, like, and Cassidy had this mixtape, this cassette that I don't know where it came from, but his brother had recorded it off of a TV show or a video or something, and it had the best versions of all of their songs, and the sound was kind of like iffy because he did it on like one of those small like tape recorders where you hit record and he did it from the TV speaker. And Cassidy gave me that tape when I left. I think when I left Sonoma County, and then it got stuck in a tape deck on my car and went away. But like that, we used to listen to that tape like on repeat when we were driving around, and I'd sing the ad rock part, and he'd sing the out parts, and then if our friend Slim was in the back, he'd sing the Mike D parts. So like, it was a big thing.
Yeah, the first time I heard the Beastie Boys, I remember I was probably, I don't know, I was young. I don't know, maybe 11 or 12. I was down visiting my cousin in Charlottesville, my cousin Gordon, and we were driving. He was older, you know.
Okay.
He was like 5 years older than me, so he had a car, and we were driving around and probably drinking or smoking or doing something. But anyways, he had a cassette tape. I remember of the. He's like, "Do you listen to the Beastie Boys?" And I'm like, "I don't know," you know. And and so he put it in, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I think I've heard this song," you know. Uh, I'm pretty sure it was Licensed to Ill. Is what we listened to,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was like my first kind of introduction to them. And then you know, and then Licensed to, or you know, some of the other that's what I'm thinking of. That came out, you know.
Yeah,
couple
I'm
years
pretty
later.
sure my dad had a cassette of License to Ill that he kept in the workout room, and it was like that, Pantera, and some other cassette, and those were just like his rotation while working out every day. Because he'd
I
like get off
mean,
work and then work out in that room, and like I would just kind of like dick around, monkey around in there, like play with the weights and the fucking Bowflex or whatever machine we had at the time.
The Bowflex.
Yeah, it was probably the Crossbow, the knockoff brand.
Right.
nice. That's a good workout mix, I say. Even though ill communication License to Ill is problematic today, which we'll get into. But it's got some good songs on it, like like "Fight for Your Right." I mean, actually, my favorite song off of it is "Brass Monkey," and I was
What I
trying.
was just about to say.
Yeah, I was trying for the life of me today to remember what Brass Monkey is, and I cannot. It's like Crown Royal, right?
Yeah, some kind of booze.
Yeah.
I've never had it that I know of, but
yeah, I think it's like a mixed drink with Crown Royal. I might have to look it up. Whatever. But let's get into it. So, that was their big breakout, right? But before that, when they were about 14, 15, they were like deep in the New York punk scene. They were, and what I find interesting is like, and you look at their backgrounds, like Ad Rock, Adam Horowitz, his dad is another guy who cannot be named anymore. He was Me Too'd. Adam doesn't talk to him anymore. But
oh really?
yeah, he was a playwright and a director on Broadway. And then Mike D's parents, his mom was like a fine artist. She was a painter. She made a lot of money. And I can't add, Yout's parents were the same. They were like art kids, like Manhattan art kids. And I think it's interesting that like, they're probably upper middle class, I define, but like Manhattan upper middle class is kind of different than everyone else's upper middle class. But like, so they were like kind of running the streets pretty young in Manhattan and like going to punk shows. Like they are huge. They still are huge Bad Brains fans. You can see the shirts. They still wear a Bad Brains shirt like all the time. And the Circle Jerks. So Ad Rock said that he met Yout and everyone at he said a Misfits show, but then he also said it was probably a Circle Jerk show, but I like the Misfits more, so we're gonna call it a Misfits show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it started with Mike D, Yout, Adam Yout, Kate Schellenbach on drums, and then this other kid named Johnny. Hold on, I got John Barry. They met him on the streets of Manhattan because he had this spiky hair and a leather jacket or a trench coat and a synthesizer, and he was 11, or he was in 6th grade, and he was skipping class. So they were
Hell
like, this kid's awesome. So that was the original Beastie Boys, which stood for, I took notes, hold on, which stood for Boys Entering Anarchistic, towards something excellence.
Boys entering anarchistic states towards inner excellence.
Yes, thank you. Which is kind of silly because it's redundant, because Beastie Boys, so boys, and then
Right.
so it's like it's like GNU, you know, GNU's not Unix. That's
Right,
that's an engineering joke.
Yeah.
But it's also just silly because they had a girl playing drums, and that's how the band kind of started. So like they were a joke. The way they put it was, we were as much as the Sex Pistols as we were Monty Python.
Yeah.
So, which I love. I don't know. I love that idea of kind of just starting a band. And I've been complaining about this for the last like 6 months because I'm old and nostalgic, and I don't know what's up with kids these days. But fucking no one starts bands anymore. God damn it.
I know, dude. I know. It's I started a band. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if I started the band, but I was in a band when I was 12, 13.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, and I still talk to those guys today.
Taylor has a great story about his roommates. Like, somebody would just pick up a bass and start jamming, and somebody pick up another instrument.
Yeah, that was not even all that long ago. That was right about when I first got sober. I was living with 4 or 5 friends, and we had my bass. A friend would come over with his guitar. We had a keyboard, a drum set, and other just kind of like we had a tambourine, some
Nice.
shakers and stuff like that, and we
Yeah.
would just play stuff. And
Some
someone would hit upon something that sounded good, and everyone like head would like cock a little bit, and we'd just kind of try to slip into whatever groove they were playing.
That's fucking awesome. Yeah, kids don't do that now. They watch TikTok. They make TikTok videos.
I mean, I was in like 3 bands growing up. Various things.
It's the teenage generation right now. They gotta like get out of the house and go to a record store or something. I don't know.
I was in a ska band, a metal band, a fucking rock band, like just classic garage rock. Played trumpet in a ska band.
You played the trumpet?
Yeah.
I play the cello. You know that?
I didn't know that. I played the trumpet in the Air Force band, technically, for a short period of time. More on that later.
I wonder if I could have played the cello in the Navy band. More on that later. But yeah, they did what kids did in the 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s. They started a band, and they couldn't play worth shit. I was watching footage of them playing and watching Ad Rock on the guitar, and dude played like I used to play, like no technique, just power chords, like didn't use his pinky. Like, that's great. Like, if you don't know how to play an instrument, just pick it up. That's what Sid Vicious did. And he was a terrible bass player.
That's kind of something you always used to hear too, like growing up, like when we would listen to the Beastie Boys, that topic of conversation would always kind of come up, like, oh yeah, these guys started as a fucking joke, like they were like punk rockers, and for me, like I remember hearing that and talking about that, but I never had listened to anything prior to them becoming a hip hop group, but a lot of the research that I did for this podcast, and
hardcore stuff's great.
I think Max can agree here, is they have this documentary on Apple TV, and that's what I watched. I watched it a couple times, and they really dive into the history of the band,
It's really good.
A lot of the stuff that I'll speak to today is really referenced from that film, and obviously was recorded after Adam passed away.
Yeah.
But
he passed away in 2012. It was recorded in 2019.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the name of the documentary?
Beastie Boys story.
Yep.
It's based on the book, Beastie Boys book.
Yeah.
It's touching. It's touching and it's funny and it's directed by Spike Jonze, so it's worth watching just based on that. But yeah, like, so they started as this punk band. I knew them as a hip hop act too, but then in 8th grade, Cassidy had me listen to that tape, and there was some songs off of some of their old hardcore songs that had Cookie Puss on it, and like I was like, this is the Beastie, and I was into punk, so like hip hop wasn't my thing. I like Tribe, I like Beastie Boys, you know, kind of De La Soul, that kind of shit. But like I was a punk rocker, and I heard this like just fucking fast, like in your face hardcore from the Beastie Boys, and I was like, this is awesome. And it that's how they started. Like, and again, it was a joke, but a band as a joke can fucking work, you know. And so like we were watching the documentary right before this, my girlfriend and I, and she actually made a point. She was like, man, it really is who you meet or who you know to like become successful. Because what happened was they're hanging out, they're doing some shows, they're like just playing with friends and like he's fucking around. And they did the Cookie Puss song, which is, if people should go out and listen to it, it is a sample of a prank call they made to Carvel, and it's like, hey, can I talk to Cookie Puss? Is Cookie Puss there? There's no one by that name here. Can I talk Cookie or Puss? I want to talk to Cookie or Puss. And it's just a sample of that. And it got heard by a guy named Rick Rubin, who is pretty awesome. At the time, he was an NYU student. He lived in the dorms, so he's older than them. They were like 15, 16, I think 16. And yeah, they met like it. Rick Rubin wasn't even, he was in college. He wasn't even like, the Rick Rubin now has produced Slayer, Johnny Cash, fucking anyone else, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah. He is a musical genius. And what I like Rick Rubin. What I like about him is he's never done projects based on what he could, like, success. He's only done projects based on what he wants to do.
Right.
Which is punk as fuck.
And isn't the story there that like Cookie Puss was being sampled by like all the DJs and shit in New York around that time, and so that's kind of like
that's
how he
here. So the funny story on the documentary is basically they had heard that they were in a building doing something, and they heard that African Bambaataa was doing an interview on another floor. So they're like, we got to get up there. So they get up there, and Ad Rock, you know, they're asking questions in the audience. He gets up and he's like, hey, so have you heard the song Cookie Puss by the Beastie Boys? And African Bambaataa is like, yeah, man, it's pretty fat. They like sample this shit. It's pretty cool. And like the host is just like really square white guy. And he's like, so does it have like scratches on it and stuff? And African Bambaataa is like, yeah, man, it's awesome. So like that's kind of how it came together. But like, so Rick Rubin, so they started playing as a like half hardcore, half hip hop band, and the rhymes were just rip-offs of Run DMC songs, basically. So like they'd play a show, it'd be like 6 songs of their hardcore shit. They'd leave and do an encore of hip hop, and that was Kate was still in the band. She was doing rhymes and shit too, and they were bad. I think Mike D says something along the lines of like, every rapper has a piece of paper in front of them when they're on stage, right?
Right.
With their lyrics. But Rick Rubin saw something, so he became their DJ double R. Duh.
Yep.
Yeah. But he was weird. Like Rick Rubin, still a weird guy, but he was weird back then too. He was this metalhead, and he was really into wrestling, which I love. And like I wrote it down when they opened for Madonna, which I'm jumping ahead, but I'll come back. He wanted them to be like basically like they're going to open for Madonna and play to a bunch of teenage girls. So Ruben's idea is you guys are going to be the heels, like the villains of the wrestling world. So like, he's their hype man.
Right.
So he says there's an interview where he's like, we haven't been on MTV because if Beastie Boys were on MTV, we would take over. It would be Beastie TV. Interview over.
Yeah. I remember that. That part.
It's awesome. So the dudes they were like, we kind of got into wrestling like a little bit. But so through Rick Rubin, they met a man who is a very bad man now, we know, named Russell Simmons, who was actually DJ Run, now Rev Run's brother from Run DMC, and was like managing artists, and basically said like, yo, here's a lisp. It's like, yo, these white boys. I'm not very. Yeah, there it is. These white boys are dope. These are B-boys. And like he was all about managing a white rap group, and they kind of were like, sure.
So at that point, was he already involved with Def Jam Records, or
no? He hadn't started Def Jam yet.
Okay.
So he was just a manager.
Right.
But he managed like a lot of like pretty, like it was 84, and like the artists he managed were like the names of rap: Run DMC, Curtis Blow. And what the boys tell a story, like when they first went up to his offices, which they thought they were going to be these big, nice Manhattan offices, and it was really just like 2 small rooms. But in one of the rooms, there's Curtis Blow learning how to break dance.
Yeah.
And they're like, he's the king of rap. Fuck yeah. And so they were like, yeah, this is cool. They're like 17, 18, and they're like, we'll do whatever the fuck you guys want. And they started doing some shows, and it basically led to this like roundabout deal of them opening for Madonna, which was like Madonna's manager called up Russell Simmons, was like, hey, yo, I want Run DMC to open for Madonna. And he's like, they're $20,000 a show. And he's like, okay, hangs up. He calls back. He says, yo, I want the Fat Boys to open for Madonna. And Russell Simmons says, actually, the Fat Boys are really busy. They just can't do it. He never managed the Fat Boys. But I got the Beastie Boys, and they'll do it for $500.
Nice. That's so crazy.
Right? This is exactly what Hanzo was saying, right? It's like, it's before anyone actually blew up, but it is, you kind of meet people sometimes, and like that, like kind of just mix. Like Russell Simmons did some terrible things, but he also did some okay things. He did rip off the Beastie Boys though, so fuck him.
Yeah, I mean the ska band that I was in high school, the bassist in that band ended up going to the Berklee School for Music, and is now in, I can't remember which metal band, but if you named 15, it would be one of them.
See, there it is, right?
Yeah.
Anything that could happen in my life was all kismet too, right? It all just kind of like fell into my lap, you know?
Oh yeah.
So, sobriety fell into my lap. But yeah, like, so they opened for Madonna, and they're like, how do we open for Madonna? We have like 4 songs, and like, what do we do? So Rick Rubin comes up with this idea, like, you guys are going to be the heels, be the villains. And in that same interview, I think Ad-Rock or MCA says something along the lines of like, it's kind of like a love-hate relationship. We hate them and they hate us, so it's kind of like love. So like, Ad-Rock would come out. They decided to just be the best jerks they could be, and it played into that whole parody kind of joke band thing. And MCA had this like spiel when he came out on stage, and he'd just be like, we're the fucking best, and he's swearing at all these teenage girls. And
Just
that was
talking shit.
just talking shit. And then they played their songs. They was throwing beer everywhere and shit. This was before the dick came out of the box, but
Yeah.
so they're stoked. They get back to New York after the tour. They got some money in their pocket. They're 19, and they're like they haven't even cut an album yet. So like the way that like License to Ill came together was, I wrote this down because I thought it was really interesting. So like they approach songwriting from a different angle. But actually, I think I'm gonna rewind a little bit. I got to mention that during this time when they were hanging out with Rick, they sort of separated from Kate Schellenbach, and you can tell that now they feel really bad about that because, like, I mean, Rick Rubin, especially at the time, he was a college student metalhead at NYU, like, and Russell Simmons is a sexist and a rapist. So like, they kind of were like, we stopped hanging out with Kate, or maybe Kate stopped hanging out with us, so she kind of left the band. And I want to mention that, like, Josh and I have talked about this a lot. Like, it's unfortunate, but it was the trajectory the band went on, and they made amends later in Check Your Head, And
I mean, they definitely felt bad about that situation, and they talk about that, how
yeah,
I mean, they grew up with Kate, like she was
right,
one of
yeah,
their homies,
yeah.
and she was like the first drummer, but didn't fit in with that rapper
Macho thing.
right,
Well, and
yeah,
they also mentioned, I thought this was interesting too. They were like, most of our friends were girls at the time. So
yeah,
like and then it changed. And then as they got like, they started partying a lot. Oh, you're 19, you fucking go on tour with Madonna, you're making $500 a show. That's pretty good.
yeah.
So, and the lyrics of their first songs reflected that, right? But the way they kind of put it is like, when they started writing like songs for an LP, which turned out to be License to Ill. I quoted it. So they basically, their songwriting turned into just fucking around, became the creative process. So
Yeah.
they'd be like walking down the street, and they'd be like, they'd quote some lines from a rap song, like, what's it? Hey, Leroy. And then they'd go into the studio, which was, I think, Yout's apartment in Brooklyn Heights, and lay that down, and then create a song over that. And that kind of became their process, and which I love, because it kind of continued that, like, that was their songwriting process their whole career. Even when they got better at it, it was still just kind of like, hey, this is kind of funny.
Well, you gotta also talk about Rick Rubin's recording setup too. Like, you remember that?
No, Youts. It was Youts.
Was it Yelks?
Yeah, it's Youts. So okay, so it's the opening from a Led Zeppelin song. It's that drum beat, but I can't remember the Beastie Boys song it's for. It's like bow, bow, bow.
When the levee breaks or something like that.
Yes, that's the song. That's the Led Zeppelin song.
Yeah.
So what I love about this is, on stage for the documentary, they bring out the setup, which is a TAC reel-to-reel quarter-inch, which I actually had that TAC when I was a kid. My stepdad had it in his office, and I was like, do you ever use this? And he was like, no. And I was like, I'm taking it. And I recorded some shit on it, and I just play with it. It was cool. But what Yout did was, he took the reel-to-reel, he had it on his kitchen table. He had, instead of just going from one reel to the other reel, he took the tape, wound it around a mic stand, around the table to another mic stand, around a chair, and then into the other reel. And then he played that drum beat on loop, and the sound that came out was this like rough, like bassy, like just awesome sound. And it's like boom, boom, boom. And then that became, God, what song is that? It's killing me. Is that Sucker MCs? Not Sucker. It's fuck. I should have written that down. But that became one of the first songs they wrote for License to Ill. But what happened was like Yao was really into like doing weird shit. What they say like a lot. Not only was he the talent, but like he just knows shit, and they'd be like, how does like that's cool, that's a good idea, and then be like, how does he fucking know this shit?
Right? Yeah. He's like the brains behind the operation.
Yeah. So they wrote the songs for License to Ill, and then and they were pretty good actually. Again, I love Brass Monkey. It's fucking awesome. And Russell Simmons like, it's not long enough. You need one more song. So they're like, oh, okay, what do we want to do? What do we want to do? Why don't we make fun of frat boys? Yeah, like drunk frat boys. And they wrote Fight for Your Right to Party and made the video for that. And that like completed the album of License to Ill. And if you watch the video like now, you're like, this is hilarious. This is a parody. Like, this is Weird Al Yankovic level fucking jokes. Like,
yeah,
breaking the door down, the pies in the face, like Rick Rubin coming in, like wearing an AC/DC shirt. Like, it's a joke. But as it turned out, when they went on tour, the frat boys were the audience.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, they love us and we like being loved.
Yeah.
But it's also worth
kind of like
mentioning
how the Jersey Shore went over the heads of the entire Jersey Shore. And
Right. Yeah.
it was their anthem and their new Bible.
This is exactly what happened. It is the Jersey Shore paradigm or it's the Jersey Shore fallacy. If we're gonna go philosophic.
I mean, that's a valid point, Taylor.
It's a very valid point. So, you know, they haven't been on it. They haven't headlined a tour yet. So they're talking to the tour guy, and they had just done this silly ass song that they thought was like funny as hell. And the guy's like, so what do you want on stage? Like, the stage direction guy. And they're like, okay, well, we want like a 10-foot Budweiser can, like a 6-pack. We want a go-go dancer stage. And then we want a 20-foot dick to come out of a box at the end. Like, then they're just joke in their head. And the guy's like, yep, check. And then they show up and all of it's there. And the shows were them, like, they'd come out, they'd do their songs, and like, they'd have cans of beer, and like Ad Rock would like put it on his junk and like shake it up, and and like it was their shtick, and they thought it was funny, but then they became that, and because that's what happens when you're 19 and you do anything, right? Like,
yeah, you find a button with a reliable effect, and you're gonna keep pushing it until it stops working.
Yeah, like a rat doing cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they toured all over, and their shit was vulgar. Obviously, they had a 20-foot dick coming out of a box. So like they were banned in the South, and like like all over the U.S. they had to like sneak out of shows so they wouldn't get arrested for lewd behavior. And then when they went to England, like the British press is way different than the American press. The libel laws are a lot different. So like the British press had just, hey baby. Hello. The British press had just like made up stories about them, like Beastie Boys leer at dying children. My favorite headline. And then in an article they call Adam Horowitz horrible Horowitz.
Oh god, that's like a Trump level nickname.
Is. I mean, it really is. So like Parliament actually had to have a meeting to allow them into the country.
That's life goals right there.
Oh, I'm shoot, dude. You know what? If I can get Margaret Thatcher to ban me from England in the '80s, I that's life completed.
Oh yeah.
Um. So, but yeah, they just became that. That was their, and they toured. They did the U.S. They did the world. They did the U.S. again, and that is like a 3-year no breaks. Like, ugh. So they get back to New York, and they're happy to be back in New York. And Russell Simmons is like, "You guys got to back on tour," and they're like, and Yao, of course, was the first one. It was like, "I am done. I'm so done."
I mean, 3 years of touring, dude. Like, fuck that.
Oh god, I went on
3 years to tour as a band that started as a joke is like
exactly.
that's insane. It's like you go to work tomorrow and they're like, "Hey, you're going to China for the next 3 years, by the way, for work." And you're like, "What?
Yeah,
I didn't sign up for that. I signed
Yeah.
up to sit in front of a computer."
Yeah, I signed up to make like shitty rhymes and like drink beer.
Yeah.
Like Russell Simmons is like, "Yo, you can just put water in the cans and shit, and like it'll be fine." And of course, he convinces them to go on tour again, but like they weren't in it. His heads weren't in it. But I kind of was saying this at the beginning, like you could see that Yao was like kind of like a bit ahead or a bit apart from the b-boy thing, because like in the picture, the promo pictures, and this even the album pictures. I have a book, but I won't grab it. But like it's a bunch of photography of like this guy named Glenn E. Friedman. He did a lot of their covers. Even in the album artwork, like Ad Rock and Mike D are wearing like b-boy shit. They got the leather hat, they got the shell toes, they're like chains. And Yao,
they look like Run DMC.
Exactly. Basically. And Yao is always wearing like just a t-shirt or a leather jacket and like ripped up jeans and sneakers. And you can tell he's a little bit like, I think subconsciously, like he was in it, but subconsciously he was kind of like, I'm not going to do that.
Out the door. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this was like kind of like the beginning of the end of them with Def Jam. Because so during this time, like Ill Communicate or License to Ill was one of the first albums that Def Jam released as a record label. And this was kind of the beginning of the end a little bit with them. And like after that tour, they came back to New York and they kind of spread out. Yao went to Brooklyn. He had a house, apartment in Brooklyn Heights still. Mike D experimented with a lot of drugs. Those are his words.
As you do.
As you do. And my favorite is Horowitz went to LA to be a movie star.
Right.
And he was
Can we talk about that? Yeah.
Yes, I want to.
Doesn't he like drive a car into a pool or some shit?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I got the scene. I just watched it, so I got it fresh.
All right, you got it fresh. Okay. Yeah.
So he's in the passenger seat of a convertible, and there's a blonde woman driving, and she's smoking a J, and she's like, "Here, you want some?" And she passes it to him, and he's like kind of nerdy. He's wearing like a button-down shirt, and he looks really nerdy, and he's like, "Okay." Oh. And then and then it cuts to the car driving through a fence and into a pool. And the face and then it shows him getting in the water and he's like, ooh, ooh.
Yeah.
And Mike D on stage makes the joke. He's like, Spike, play that again. And they play it like 3 times. He's like, I don't know. I've never driven a convertible into a pool, but I don't think when the water hit me, I would ejaculate.
Right.
And Ad Rock, he's like, he says the name of the movie and he's like, don't look it up. Don't watch it. Don't. It's bad. Don't do it. It's like a Beverly Hills teen movie, basically.
What's the name of the movie?
I don't know. I'll find out. It's like, I swear it's like Beverly Hills Kids or something. It's like something similar. But so they didn't talk for like 2 months. They're best friends from like the age of 14. And like they just like Yout started a band called Brooklyn, which I think is a little on the nose when he's living in Brooklyn. But and again, Mike D's
Lost
drugs.
Angels. Sorry to interrupt you. The movie was called
that?
Lost Angels.
Thank you. I don't know the plot. It's watch the documentary because that's probably the funniest part, aside from Spike Jonze fucking up like multiple cues. But yeah, they didn't break up, but the Beastie Boys weren't the Beastie Boys anymore. So, and they didn't want to be the Beastie Boys, I think. Like, I think they were just like, we're not these guys, we're not this band. I want to act, I want to do another band, I want to do LSD. Like that was they all had different ideas. But a few months go by, Horowitz is shooting this movie. He's in the hotel in Beverly Hills, and he gets a box from Yout. The box thing is also awesome. So it's a big box, and he opens it, and it's a bunch of like packing peanuts in another box, and then another box, and then another box, and then it's a cassette tape.
Yeah.
It's like I did something similar when I worked at Warner Brothers, actually. But and he plays it, and it's Yout's band Brooklyn, and Ad's like, "Ooh, what the fuck? Like, are you telling me you're done with the Beastie Boys? Are we done? Like, what the fuck?" So he calls him up, and Yout's like, "No, I want to do it. I want to do it, and I want to do it with us. I don't want fucking managers. I don't want a record label fucking telling us what to do. I want to write our own music. I even want to take our own promo shots. Like, fuck it." So everyone goes to LA, meets up with Ad, and so they had a multi-platinum, almost diamond record, and they didn't get paid for it. No royalties, no advance even. They only got tour money. So that's the rift.
With Russell.
Yeah, with Def Jam and Russell Simmons, and by proxy, Rick Rubin. Unfortunately, I think that Rick would have worked with them still. He's not a money man. Like, I don't think there's an interview with him after Beastie Boys story came out where he's like, I didn't even know. I thought they stopped talking to me. If they called me, I'd talk to them.
Right.
So they've made up now, like the two guys, and they made up. But like, again, Russell, Rick were like the guys telling them what to do.
Yeah.
So they were like, and this happens to a lot of artists. Like, I witnessed this at Warner Brothers. Like, you fucking new artists they get a shitty record deal for sure. Like, they get a single or one or two records. They get a $250,000 advance, which sounds like a lot, but that's money you got to pay to record your album. And you got to make it back before you get any money. But that's not even what happened. They made it back in spades. Def Jam just took it. So they signed to Capitol Records. And I think they continued on Capitol until the Five Boroughs. And I got a little beef with Capitol Records from my days at Warner Brothers, but they're a good record label. They got a cool building in LA, whatever. I'm sure the Christmas tree on the top is lit up right now. Not very good marketing department. That's all I say. So yeah, they signed to Capitol, and Capitol gives them an advance to record an album, and they're like, "All right, we're doing it." And then again, it's like, because it's been so long between the first album and their other album, like it's like a first record deal. Like, they get a $250,000 advance, but they don't what was it? So they made two mistakes basically. One, they were still kids; they're in their early 20s. So they rented this huge house in the Hollywood Hills, and it turned out to be Madeline Grassow's house, who's this 70s star. And they broke into her fucking locked closet and wore all her clothes. And two, they got a new manager, and they thought, we'll get. They called this guy up. I can't remember. Oh no, something Demand, which I think is funny. DEMAN, Demand.
Demand. Sticking it to Demand.
Yeah, and he was Kenny Rogers and Lionel Richie's manager, and they were like, fuck yeah. And they say pretty much like, it's not a really good idea to base your financial future on a joke. So they go all out. They do Paul's Boutique. And I will say that Paul's Boutique, I heard this when I was at Warner Brothers in 2002, 2003. If Paul's Boutique were made then, or even now, it would cost over $1 billion for all the sample rights.
Yeah.
And like, so that's the kind of album it really was. I don't like it much, it's a little too experimental, but it's a little too funky, I think, for me. But they kind of thought like, they just went buck wild. They did whatever they want.
Just overly sampled.
Yes. And they were the first to do it.
Total of 105 songs are sampled on that album.
Thank you. You can't do that now.
No.
I'm honestly like, so everyone says that like that basically set the stage for bands to get sued for sampling shit. And that set the stage for Vanilla Ice to get sued for ripping off Queen.
Yeah.
Thank God it was Vanilla Ice and not the Beastie Boys.
I know.
Yeah.
So like, I love that. I'm gonna do an impression of Vanilla Ice real quick. So the song was dun 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 dun, and our song was dun 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 dun.
Dun 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 dun.
Yeah, he lost the suit. And was held over a balcony by Suge Knight. But we'll get into that in another episode.
I did not know that.
Oh, didn't know he had so much in common with Michael Jackson's son.
I remember when that happened.
Blanket?
Yeah, yep. Yeah.
I can't talk too much shit because I have a connection to Paris. So, but seriously, it's awesome.
You gotta be careful, or I'll end up breaking Max.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm picturing Michael Jackson as Suge Knight holding Vanilla Ice over dog. Hilarious. Anyways, so Paul's Boutique drops. Capitol's behind it. They are like full throttle. Like they're like, the Beastie Boys are not a one-hit wonder. And they have this clip of this white like CEO wearing a suit. They're saying the Beastie Boys are fresh, and it bombs. And I know why it bombed, because people wanted another License to Ill. They thought the Beastie Boys are coming out with a new album. They don't expect to even have one instrumental track on the album, let alone like 3. Right? Yeah. So I get it. But so they kind of like were humbled by that. I don't even think they got tour support from Capitol on that one because it bombed so bad. But now, like nowadays, it is looked at as a fucking revolutionary album of a way to sample, a way to create songs with samples of other shit. And that is, they didn't have a producer. The Dust Brothers did their next album, but like Paul's Boutique was all Yout. Like again, he's the genius. So they're humbled. They're still in LA, and they're kind of like, they got another record on the deal with Capitol, but they've blown their advance on rent and lavish breakfasts and drugs. And so I also, actually, I want to do a little footnote here too, because this is also when Nathaniel Hornblower was introduced, who was famous Swiss filmmaker uncle.
Right.
But and they still like they have carried that joke to this day. Like they don't even touch on the fact that it's Yout in a fucking costume.
Yeah.
They talk about him like he's another person in 2019.
Can you describe what this guy looks like?
So he's wearing lederhosen. He's got one of those Swiss sort of like chalet hats. He's got a little goatee beard. I'd call it almost a Van Dyke, but with more stuff. And
a little thicker base.
Yeah. And he's always got one of those like old school camera lenses that like old directors had around his neck, where you can go like and like see what the fucking camera angle is going to be like, always around his neck. And he never breaks character.
Yeah.
And he puts on this really great fake Swiss accent. There's a good interview with them, and I don't like, the interviewer doesn't even know what's going on, and she's like, "You're really wearing some strange clothes," and he's like, "Well, this is the clothes of my country. This is what I wear. I look at you in your suit going to work, and I laugh at you." And again, I think she knows it's Yout, but like doesn't know what to say, because the other guys are like, "Yeah, this is Yout's uncle. He's a very famous Swiss filmmaker."
Yeah.
Nathaniel Hornblower. And they carried that even into Ill Communications during the MTV Video Awards, when Sabotage came out. I'm jumping ahead, but Sabotage came out and it won an award for Best Video, but Spike Jonze didn't win an award for Best Director. And Nathaniel Hornblower pulls a Kanye and gets on stage when REM is accepting their award for, I think, night swimming or something. And he's like, since I was a young boy in Switzerland, I dreamed of Spike winning this award. And Michael Stipe is behind him, like he's cracking up, but he's also like kind of like, what?
Like, what the hell is happening?
It was a Kanye Taylor Swift moment, but like Michael Stipe was like, what? Like, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like they even say like it was weird having this like weird Swiss guy around all the time. He was drunk. He was drinking all the time. That's Yout. He's drinking all the time as a Swiss filmmaker. But this is it was a product of them wanting to do everything themselves. They were tired of the record labels like assigning a photographer to do promo shoots, direct the videos. They wanted their own people. So after Paul's Boutique just bombed, they downsized. I think they were a little older, like 26, 27. They show a picture of Ad Rock in his new car, which is a used Civic in the 90s. And they were like, they had spent like most of their advance on rent, drugs, and very expensive studios to record the album. So they were like, fuck it, we don't have any money. Let's just build our own studio. And they had heard these guys named the Dust Brothers, who have produced a lot of stuff. They're very talented. They were computer science students, actually. And they basically got they were Yout, of course. So the other two were in like the Hollywood area, but Yout gets a place in Atwater Village, which at the time was a nowhere neighborhood in LA. And actually, to get to it, you had to drive through a place called the Avenues, which was run by the gangs. They called it the Avenues because you could get lost and killed there. So like, and Yout literally rents a fucking log cabin, which if you've been to Atwater Village or Eagle Rock, there's a lot of log cabins around there. It's really weird. And they decide to build a studio there. And they get I think the Dust Brothers engineer, they get a couple other guys, Mike Shinoa on keyboards and shit. And they do Check Your Head. Right? That name of the album? That's the name of the song. I think it's Check Your Head, sorry.
Check Your Head, yeah.
Yeah, Check Your Head. So they record Check Your Head. And it's more Beastie Boys than Paul's Boutique. It doesn't have any instrumentals, but it still kicks ass. It's got like Ad even talks about it. He's like, we all got instruments. Fucking Yout came in with this upright bass. We had no idea he knew how to play. And like we started playing a lot of different stuff. He's like, I was a punk rock guitarist, and now I'm trying to learn how like jazz and funk and shit. It's really hard. And the lyrics on it are different too, though. So there's on what you want.
Yeah.
I think it's Yout or Mike D. One of them. Basically, like he's got a line of like, I want to. Fuck, my head's broken. I want to apologize basically to all the women for my past. I'm paraphrasing. And he did it as like a line, not necessarily mea culpa or an amends, but it really was like he did it. He meant it, but he didn't think anyone would notice. But it really was like a new beginning. It was an apology to Kate. It was an apology to every woman. It was an apology for the song "Girls," girls to clean my room, girls to do my laundry, girls do my dishes. Right? Like,
Yeah.
It's troublesome. And it actually like got a lot of press, and a lot of people were saying, "You fucking hypocrite! Like you did that. That was you." And I think basically he said, "I'd rather be a hypocrite than a misogynist," and just shut it down.
Nice.
Which I love.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's also the difference in, when they wrote Girls, they weren't who they became yet.
yeah. And it was a joke to them, but people
Yeah,
took it
exactly.
seriously.
And then once they started to like have more success, have more notoriety, realize that like people weren't getting the joke that they were writing. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we got to address this."
Yeah, they became like the influence they had on people was real.
Mhm.
So like they're like, oh, actually people are listening. So let's be good citizens.
It's like when you're in, 6th grade and you
Yeah.
convince your friend that, if you eat the roach, it gets you way more high. And then you run into them 20 years down the road after high school and college is over, and they finish smoking the joint, and you see them eat the roach, and they tell you that it gets you way more high, and you're like, "Oh, no, buddy, that was a joke in 6th grade. If you've been doing that the last 20 years, oh no."
I got my friend to drink the bong water.
Yeah.
Yes, it's exactly like that. Or, I mean, to me, it's like, so me and my cousin Nick, Dr. Nick, who was on the first episode of this podcast, I'd say we were in our 20s and teens, late teens. We didn't have a lot of like tact. So one of our ideas for a band, and I'm going to say this, it's really bad, it's really offensive, and I'm sorry I did it. Well, we didn't do it. I'm sorry we had the idea. Was we're Jewish, both Jewish, of Jewish descent, Ashkenazi Jewish. We were gonna start a band, just the two of us, called Jews in the Oven, and we were gonna come out in tinfoil, like head to toe tinfoil, and that's the end of the idea right there.
Mhm.
And his girlfriend, his wife now, Lindsay, was like, I'm not even Jewish, and that's the most offensive thing I've ever fucking heard. You guys are idiots. And I look back on that and I'm like, damn, that's fucked.
Yep, that's the pizza cutter phase that we go through as adolescents, all edge and no point.
That's exactly right. Or even like me and him got into like dead baby jokes, right? Like on the internet.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
And
we all
like
did.
we all did. And like now I'm like, that is tasteless.
Mhm.
Um so you just
I
grow
had
up,
to
I guess.
resist so hard making a dead baby joke after you said
One
tasteless.
just popped in my head and I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do it.
Yep.
Because I have babies.
Mhm.
So yeah, like you grow up, times change. 2000, they were ahead of the times, but 2006 was about the time when like you couldn't do certain things in the office, right? You know,
Yep.
um, like there's a guy at Warner Brothers who used to call one of our interns. He was this tall Asian guy named I forgot what his name, Marvin. He was about 6 foot tall, and this dude who was great, Phil. I won't say his last name. Who was also like almost 7 feet tall. Used to call him the Asian ladder. I don't think
Yeah,
you
that's
could get
not
away
gonna
with
work
that.
today.
No, but we all thought it was hilarious. Marvin loved it, but no, you can't do that. It's tasteless. You can't do it. Also, by the way, Phil, I went to the ER because of esophagus thing. Phil paid my medical bills because I didn't have insurance. $20,000.
Wow.
He's a good guy. Yeah.
Quite a bit of money.
Yeah. I'll just say, if you want to find out who he is thanked on what's Radiohead's first or second album? Fuck. Whatever it is, he's thanked on their second album as "Thank you for making us rock stars, Phil." So that's who he is. Great guy. I hope he's still alive. Anyways, so
it's the Benz. Is the second
thank you,
album.
the Bends. So Phil came from Capitol to Warner, by the way. So yeah, they do check your head. They finally, I think that's the album where they get the idea. It clicks. And actually in the promo pictures and all the pictures and stuff, they had started to kind of homogenize, right? You know, Yout wasn't the standout anymore. They were all kind of doing their shit. And then check your head, you notice that like actually they start wearing the same outfits. They start doing kind of like weird shit. They're still doing the funny stuff. They're still doing it. I liken this to like what Rick Rubin does. They were making music that they wanted to make, not to make music to be successful.
Yeah.
Right. They didn't have anybody telling them what to do. They went a little wild on Paul's Boutique. They reeled it in. And then after that, they had more success than they ever did on Def Jam. So, we can go into Ill Communications, which it's probably my favorite album of theirs because it has my favorite song, Sabotage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is a lot of people's favorite song. I played it on my guitar the other day, and it's one chord. Ad Rock plays one chord.
Yep.
Which is, and I was watching it too. That fucking opening, that's not Ad on the guitar. That's fucking Yout on the bass.
The bass, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all bass.
That's fucking wicked. I mean, you guys are bass players.
Yep.
Do that.
Okay. Can we get DMCA'd if I play my own instrument?
Actually, if you do it for less than 10 seconds, we're good.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just pull
are
a
you gonna do
Vanilla
it?
Ice.
Okay. So this is also when they kind of get creative with the visual stuff. the video for, I mean, I'll even talk about the making of the song. So the song, the words were Ad Rock talking shit to one of the engineers, and he was like, "You're always sabotaging us. I'm telling y'all, it's sabotage." And that's how the song came about. But the video, I think it was their first video directed by Spike Jonze.
I love the video, by the way.
God, it's so good. And the way they did it their way. They didn't get any permits. They didn't get they shot. Spike Jonze is a skate video director, and he's the best. Like, go watch The Flare. It's the best skate video ever made. So he shoots it like a skate video. So like they just dress up like cops, right? And like wigs and mustaches. And all those shots around LA, they broke into buildings and shot there.
Nice.
And like the roof shots and stuff, like they had to like break into an emergency exit to get up to the roof. So, which I love. And they worked with Spike Jonze till the end. And he did Being John Malkovich if you want one of his feature-length films, but I still recommend seeing his skate videos because they're the fucking best. They have the best soundtracks. They've got the best footage. He doesn't have it's a lot of long, like, series of tricks. It's not just cuts of one trick to another. It flows. He's very good. And yeah, we're gonna end on Ill Communications, but like, there's great songs in there. It's one of my favorite albums. I used to play it on repeat. Sabotage, I think, sums them up as a band perfectly. It's hardcore, it's punk, it's got some hip hop, it's got a little bit of sampling, like it's got some keyboards. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And the video was good. And like I said, they didn't win Best Director, but they did win Best Video MTV Movie Awards. We'll go in. We're gonna do another part. This is the first part. We're gonna end it here, but end it with this album. I think talk a little bit more, but their favorite album, and I think a lot of people's favorite album, was Hella Nasty, which is great. I can't think of a party I went to from the age of like 17 to 22 that I didn't hear Hella Nasty at. You know, like Intergalactic. Yeah. Like everywhere, every party. It's a good party record. I always went to parties and like I'd be like if I had a party, I couldn't play my music because it's not party music.
Yeah, everybody would leave.
Yeah, I'd have to play like reggae or something because like I had punk and reggae. That was like the records I had. But like Intergalactic.
This was the first album that I had of theirs personally. That came out in '98. I'm gonna make you feel bad by saying this. I was 6 years old, and I heard Intergalactic on the radio,
it's funky.
And I was like, I want that. That's the one I want. And so my parents got me that cassette.
Nice. This is a good album.
Yeah.
We'll go in depth on that one. I think I want to, like, I've basically studied the music up to Ill Communication. So next time we're going to study the music like through Hella Nasty and Five Boroughs and the next stuff. And
you mentioned before we started recording that you wanted us to do make playlists of our favorite Beastie Boys songs.
Okay.
And I think that's a really cool idea.
So the three of us, and I think we're going to start doing this for the rest of the podcast, but for this, I think it's a perfect time because the Beastie Boys have a huge catalog. We're all going to make our own Beastie Boys playlists. So I think it's a good idea because we all have different tastes, and I think it will reflect like their vastness of talent and our particular tastes. Mm-hmm. Because we didn't really mention this, but they also put out an EP, a 7-inch that I still rock. It's called Aglio e Olio, which is it's straight hardcore. Just the three of them, just like 3 chords, fucking fast, screaming hardcore, and it's awesome.
So what do you guys propose we do with these playlists? Like,
I think Apple or Spotify or both.
yeah, and then maybe we can post them in a Discord.
Yeah, we'll post them in the Discord. Crook can put them in the Discord. When this comes out on the podcast, it'll be in the description too.
I'll actually set up an entire section for both of our podcasts on the Discord.
Nice. I think also I did Instagram this episode, so I'll probably do a second one with the playlist too. So I don't have a lot of followers, but I do have Dave Schrader though, who is a ghost hunter and he's been on TV.
I have seen him.
He's a great guy.
What's up, Dave?
I don't think he's watching, but
if you're listening,
he did.
If we
reply
get big, you might look at the back catalog, see this episode.
Exactly.
He was the I when Crook and I did our Mothman adventures. I tweeted it and Instagrammed it to every single paranormal investigator that's on TV. He was the only one who replied.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave Schrader.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. So yeah, I'll put it on the Instagram. But I think what do you guys have any like final words on the Beastie Boys up until this point?
No, I think we covered a lot tonight, and like you mentioned, we'll follow this up with a part 2 episode and go through the rest of the story with you. And then what are we looking at in the future?
Well, I know we've talked about the Deftones a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not my like cup of tea, but I do like the Deftones, and I would love to dive into something I don't know that much about.
Yeah, that'd be great for me. I've seen them several times and grew up on their music, and so yeah. I think we've talked about that. So yeah.
I mean, Taylor, I think you like the Deftones too, right?
I actually haven't listened to the Deftones very much at all. I had another idea for far out into the future, possibly, if we ever start looking into the DC area punk scene in any sort of depth, possibly getting my dad on here as a guest.
I would love that.
Since he was, not directly involved with the punk scene, but he was deeply involved with the skateboarding scene.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
His ramp that his friends built out in the woods where Minor Threat played, Guar played, just all kinds of DC area bands came and played on that ramp because it was the biggest and only vert ramp of that size on the East Coast at the time.
Awesome. All right, we're gonna get the butcher on here.
We should definitely do that.
Yeah. I have an idea for an episode in the future too.
What's that? I'm taking notes, by the way.
I think we should break down the Wiggles. I'd love to hear Toot Toot Chugga Chugga Big Red Car and Fruit Salad Yummy Yummy, and your thoughts on it.
Oh, and I do also have one other final note that was inspired by the Wiggles just now. You mentioned not knowing what goes in a brass monkey. So for our viewers / listeners who can still drink, it is 1 part dark rum, 1 part vodka, and 2 parts orange juice. And you guys can tell us how that works, because to me it sounds disgusting, and also it would kill me.
That sounds like I just hearing that made me hungover. Oh.
Yeah, that's a lot of sugar.
It gave me a headache.
Yeah.
And heartburn.
Jesus, that junkie monkey, man. Yeah, and heartburn. Jesus Christ. God damn.
A lot of acid.
Yeah. God. I think maybe that's something you take with LSD because it's got the vitamin C, right?
So vitamin C will cancel a trip.
Does it?
Really?
Oh, right. You're right. Yeah.
Oh, damn. Then I was doing it wrong all those years ago.
Yeah.
I used to drink a lot of orange juice thinking it was kind of like what we were talking about earlier when you swallow the roach. I guess. I thought the orange juice made it better.
Not quite like the mango and weed mixture.
So everyone knows that in case they are ever on a mushroom trip and they need to make it stop, antacid or milk.
Or Sunny D.
Or Sunny. Oh.
Yeah.
there was a time that I was in Vegas for DEF CON when I was 15. It was DEF CON 5, guys. If you guys know anything about DEF CON, that's how old I am. I was drinking Sunny D and Jack Daniels on the sunset on the Las Vegas Strip. Yeah.
Isn't that the security conference?
Yes.
Yeah.
They are at DEF CON 30 something now.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
My man was there back in the day riding the Rot Gut Express.
Oh God. Okay, so Sunny D, Jack Daniels, LSD. And then my friend Dane got pushed in the fucking fountain at Bailey's. And another fight ensued, but that's another story. Anyways, all right. So this is what I was thinking in terms of lineup for the next episodes. Beastie Boys 2, Deftones. I want to do folk punk because I'm in this Pat the Bunny. I've been listening to a lot of stuff, and I basically want to touch on it because I'm pissed because it kind of seemed to end in 2016 with the death of Eric Peterson from Mischief Brew. Because I can't find any folk punk shows around. What the fuck? And
Well,
why
we're just gonna have to make a folk punk band and make some folk punk.
folk punk? Yeah.
Well,
I
it's
mean-
dangerous to try that because in my experience with folk punk, it's either a good band with shitty people or a shitty band with good people.
Well, that's
so
why Pat.
that would mean that we would have a shitty band.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm okay with a shitty band, honestly. But that's why Pat the Bunny got out of the scene. So like it's 2006, Eric Peterson dies. 2016, Eric Peterson dies. 2016, Pat the Bunny retires, becomes a security IT infosec person. Go figure. Also sober, former heroin addict. But yeah, there's no anarchist collectives in DC. How is that even possible? They're all in Richmond.
There's definitely Christo-fascist collectives in DC. There's a documentary on one of them on either Hulu or Netflix.
Okay, so
I think it's
I
called
know
The
where
Family.
I know. Oh, I know. Okay, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I know where that is. Okay, I know where I'm going tomorrow. I'm gonna get in a fight there. If I get arrested, guys, don't worry, I'll get out. But yeah, I don't know. I've just been feeling nostalgic, like I said, about the kids these days. And I don't know. I just wanted to punch a Nazi like really bad.
Yeah, I've been in that same headspace. I've not been carrying as much recently just because my headspace.
You're afraid of what you'll do.
Yeah,
Me too.
you know.
Me too.
At least we all
Just-
get the chance to be Indiana Jones.
I mean, I am carrying a revolver lately, but not as much. Anyways, so yeah, that's I think the lineup. So and then Taylor has mentioned Rush a couple of times, but I will be cold and dead before I do a podcast on Rush.
I'll warm you
Yeah.
up to it.
No, I'll do it. I'm joking.
I'll warm you up to it.
You'll warm me up to it. No, I do. I would do it. I would do it.
I'd probably sit out on that one.
What about Floyd? Should we do Floyd?
Nah.
I mean, I feel
There's
like that's
probably-
been done enough.
Yeah, there's probably a million podcasts on Pink Floyd out there.
We could do an episode on our favorite Pink Floyd inspired bands.
So you mean all of us would do Incubus, right? Oh, I'm sorry, but I hate Incubus. So yeah.
Yeah, I prefer Succubus personally.
I mean, in terms of the demonology, I definitely prefer Succubus.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna end it. I'm gonna fucking end this thing.
All right, everybody. Well, remember to drink your brass monkeys and rock well, and we'll see you when we return from dwelling in our castles in Brooklyn.
Hey, we
Absolutely.
got a
I also-
suggestion from a listener.
Oh,
Um,
what is it?
Ewok 156 says maybe do an episode on like Imagine Dragons Or Kanye.
Ooh. But
Imagine
You know what?
dragging these nuts across Kanye's face, though.
I would do Imagine Dragons. If we did one on Kanye, it would be me ranting and screaming for like an hour. Talk about punching
Well,
a Nazi.
There's a void to fill now that Alex Jones is gone. So maybe you
He's
could
not
step
gone.
in
He
there.
just interviewed Kanye.
Yeah,
Oh no.
they literally just had an interview like a couple
He
days
was
ago.
too hardcore for Alex Jones. Alex Jones kept trying to make him stop saying stupid shit.
Oh, I know what I'm watching next.
Yeah, man, where you been?
It's like when Alex Jones is the like sane, level-headed guy in the room, something is wrong. But
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So I just got to plug. We're doing, the Stone Gauntlet is coming back tomorrow with Crook and Spider Dude. Right? Spider Dude.
Yeah, Spider Dude's gonna be a part of it, and Jordan's gonna be a part of it. So
Awesome.
we're gonna go ahead and do that. The Ewok 156, that will be 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Stone Gauntlet, or do an episode on ABBA.
I'd absolutely do an episode on ABBA.
We're
I
doing
would
I
that.
listen to so much
100%.
ABBA.
I would definitely do that. I mean, I love
about-
fucking ABBA.
Speaking of punching Nazis, what about Ace of Base?
But the Stone Gauntlet's gonna be we're gonna do news coverage on video games, anime, and movies and TV.
Yep.
And we're gonna try to keep it up to date. So I'll be talking about the video game awards tomorrow.
Oh, bitchin'. I'll be tuning in.
And
I
I'm gonna
will too.
I'm gonna trick Max into not hating anime.
Okay. Some of it's Attack on Titan. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Hey, Castlevania. Fucking awesome. But it's written by an American, or actually an English comic book writer. So, there you go.
I'll get you there.
You get me into that tentacle shit, weren't you?
I'll milk that prostate dry.
The Ewok, if you show up for a couple episodes, we could definitely talk about you becoming a mod.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and end it here. Otherwise, it's going to become Lord of the Rings, where it's like 15 different endings.
I was gonna say the Batman, but yeah.
Or the Batman.
All right, so I'm signing off. I'm Maxwell Murder. Stay obsessed. I think that's my thing. Or Punch a Nazi. That's my new one. Josh.
Yeah, Jay Gazes. I can never remember what I'm gonna say at the end, so peace out.
Taylor.
This is Taylor. If you see Putin, just take out both of his kneecaps.
So he can never ride a bear again. And Crook, our illustrious producer.
It's Crook Irish. You guys stay weird.
Fuck yeah. I am gonna go to sleep, guys.
Same here.
I'm gonna go watch about 9 episodes of Scrubs.
Oh god, you just made me vomit in the mouth.
Scrubs is good.
I liked it when it was on. Okay, we're done. We're done.
I'm probably just gonna whack it to giraffe porn.
Why not?
All right, guys.
All right,
I'll
guys.
talk to you later.
Later. Love you.
Night
all.
night.
Night night.
Blue moon, you saw me standing alone, without a dream in my heart, without the love of my own. Blue moon, you knew just what I was there for. You heard me saying a prayer for someone I really could care for. And then there suddenly appeared before me the only one my arms will ever hold. I heard somebody whisper, please adore me. And when I looked and I turned to go,